love dogs. Big dogs, little dogs, I don't care. Just dogs. But what happens when they're 8 feet with 4-inch teeth and they're growling at you? Well, today we're going to find out what 3 people did in that exact situation. Randy is 24 years old and lives in the middle of nowhere. Literally. The date is February 9th, 2017, and we are in Prowers County, Colorado. And Randy's coming home late that night because he had just dropped off his sister at the airport in Lamar, Colorado. And he lives 7 miles north of the Oklahoma border on 250 acres of land. And he has a trap line around his property for coyotes. And so on the way home, he decides to check his traps. And the first 2 traps are empty. So he heads south. And that's when he sees it. At first, he thinks it's a coyote. A big coyote. It is almost 5 feet tall on all 4s. And it is running around making this big dust cloud. And then it stops and looks at Randy. And Randy slams on the brakes and stalls his stick shift pickup truck. It's an old farm pickup truck with a carburetor that backfires when you start it. And he is fumbling for the keys hanging from the ignition. He finds them, turns them, starts it, bang! Once the coyote hears that backfire, it lunges at him and roars. And Randy sees that it's got its right hand, not paw, caught in one of his traps. It had probably tried to get the dead rabbit that Randy had in the bait hole next to the trap. Then it stands up and rips out the 2 earth anchors that he had in the ground, 24 inches into the ground, rips them right out. Then just stares at Randy. And it felt like an eternity. And Randy knows that his 357 would do nothing to stop this thing should it choose to attack him. But he's just standing there in shock and awe looking at this thing. And he notices it has orange eyes. And they're not glowing. It's more like they have a tint, like cat's eyes in the dark. Then it takes a step toward him, curling up its upper lip, snarling at him, showing him his teeth, and they are huge. The longest 2 had to have been 4 to 5 inches long. It growls at Randy. And then it's gone in the blink of an eye. And that scares Randy crapless. Jams the truck into gear, spins the tires, and gets out of Dodge. And like he said, it felt like it lasted an eternity, but it probably only lasted 30 seconds max. Now, Randy later returned with a friend of his who is part Arapaho Indian, and he told Randy of some stories that had been passed down through his grandfather's family and mentioned something about a loup-garou, or a French werewolf, or other locals know it as a rougarou. And he also told Randy about some fur trappers in the 1700s and 1800s who were chased off their land in the Rockies because of this thing. And Randy sleeps with the lights on now, and he knows it sounds silly for a 24-year-old man to be sleeping with the lights on, but honest to God, he's still afraid of this thing, and he didn't bother going to look for his lost trap. Our next story happened in January of 2016 in Mackinac County in Michigan. The poster wants to remain anonymous, so we're just going to call him Jack. Normally, Jack carries a 10mm handgun on his belt every day. But this particular day, he was going into his doctor's office to get some blood work done, so he didn't put the gun belt on. He just took it with him in his truck and stuffed it under the seat. And due to some road construction, he has to take a back road to get to the doctor's office. And as he turns down that road, he notices something about a half a mile up in the field. And it kind of looks canine, so he kind of slows down a little bit so he can get a better look. And standing in that field is the largest wolf he has ever seen. Now keep in mind that between his house and the doctor's office, there are actually 2 packs of wolves that roam in that area. So Jack is super familiar with wolves. In fact, it's kind of an anomaly that he even was curious about that wolves because he sees them all the time. But he was so curious about this huge wolf that he just had to stop and get a picture of it with his phone. Now, for some reason, he is not in his right mind at this moment. He is never curious about wolves, even big wolves, and he would never leave his truck to go get a picture of one. Yet here he finds himself grabbing his phone, shutting off his truck, and getting out, walking into that field to go get a picture of that wolf. He cannot describe what was going on in his head at that moment. All he knows is that he has to get a picture up close. The wolf moved behind this huge set of bushes. So Jack kind of skirts around to the right to go around the bushes to get his picture. And as he comes around those bushes, he comes face to face with this wolf 5 to 6 feet away from him. He stops moving, and somewhere in the back of his mind, he hears the words, "Get the picture." And as he raises the phone, he hears the wolf start to growl. And he feels like he understands that growl. It's a warning growl telling him, back off. And the hair on the back of Jack's neck stands on end. And he snaps out of whatever trance that he'd been in, and shoving his phone into his pocket, he yells very loudly, "If you want to get hostile with me, then I got a little something for you." And Jack reaches for his pistol, but he grabs air, and he runs his hand along his belt, looking for it, not taking his eyes off of that wolf. He realizes he never put it on because he was going to the doctor's office. It's in the truck. So Jack takes a deep breath, calmly turns around, and starts walking toward the truck. Now his instincts are screaming at him to run to the truck, but his brain is telling him that this wolf is bigger than he is, and he's 6'4" and 300 plus pounds, and could probably take care of himself in a pinch with a wolf if he had to. But this thing made him feel small, and that if he runs, it will trigger that wolf's predatory instinct. If he runs, he will never make it to the truck. So he keeps going slowly, calmly, until he finally does reach the truck. And he calmly reaches out and grabs the handle and opens the door. And he glances over his shoulder, and he sees that the wolf has its paws on the gravel right across the road from him. And he knew that that wolf hadn't let him get any further than that particular distance from him. So he quickly hops in the truck, slams the door, and reaches under the center console to grab his gun. And as he draws it from the holster, he can see a huge nose from the corner of his eye in the center of his driver's side window. And he also realizes that he never chambered a round in his gun that morning. Well, the full weight of his stupidity hits him, and he racks around in the chamber. And he glances out the window, and he gets a sense that the wolf is amused. The look on its face, its posture, its eyes. Those eyes are so damn human-like that he can read the creature's emotions. It's fully amused and equally curious as to why a thin-skinned and squishy creature such as a human being would actually walk right up to it on purpose. Jack just starts his truck, puts it in drive, and gently pushes the gas pedal. He knew that wolf was not going to hurt him. Mock him, yes, but hurt him, no. And as he starts to drive away, movement in his rearview mirror catches his eye. The wolf had turned and casually started walking back into the field on its 2 hind legs. Our next story comes from Kenton, Kentucky, from early December of 2013, and the writer would like to remain anonymous, so we'll just call her Shelley. Shelley used to work about 30 miles from where she lived, and one night on the way home from work, she got stuck in massive traffic, and it took forever, and after a while, she had to go to the bathroom. And she kept telling herself, she'll make it, but by the time she got off the highway on her exit, she knew she wasn't going to make it. So she pulls into this isolated, heavy wooded area, and she pulls off into this little side drive off the main road, and it has bushes on the right side facing the main road. On the left side is a guardrail and a view of the valley below, and the area up there is huge and isolated, and it's dark up there because there's only a few different street lights around. So when Shelley stops, she waits for a minute, she gets out of the car, looks around, making sure that nobody else is around, and it's winter. So the bushes that separate where she is from the view from the road below doesn't have very many leaves. So you could basically just see right through them. Now she's up on this little rise about 20 to 30 feet above the main road. And to her left is a streetlight and more woods that go down a hill and lead to the main road. So finally, after checking it all out, seeing there's nobody around, she goes to the back of the car and she does what she needs to do. And as she stands up, all at once, every hair on her body stands up. And she knows she is not alone. So she scans the area in front of her and she hears something behind her. And she looks and it's 3 deer all huddled up together between her car and the guardrail. And they're not looking at her. They're looking across the road. So she looks over there. And that's when she sees a figure standing there between the bushes in front of it and the tree line behind it. Now, Shelley stands about 5'5", so she can tell that those bushes run about 6 feet. And those bushes only went up to the collarbone on this thing. And due to the street light that was off to its right about 20 feet, she was able to get a pretty good outline of this thing. It had a large, dog-shaped head and pointed ears. And she can't make out its neck, but she can make out its massive shoulders. That's when it growls. It is a deep vibration that she can feel in her chest, and her body just takes over at that point. Now, to understand what happened next, you need to know that Shelley worked in security in California in the music business for 8 years. As a woman, she had to really work out and train to defend herself. She kickboxed and worked out every day for 8 years. And she also trains dogs, mainly Anatolian Shepherds and German Shepherds, which means sometimes she has to establish who is the alpha. And to do that, she gets them down, holds them in place, grabs them by the ear, and growls at them until they submit. So when this thing growled at her, it was pure instinct. She drops down into a crouching position and growls right back at it. It stops growling and starts sniffing the air. Then it takes a few steps forward. Shelley immediately, still crouched down and on all fours, starts moving forward, still growling. And the thing stops, and she stands up and keeps staring at it, never breaking eye contact with it. It slowly backs up into the tree line till she can't quite make it out as clearly anymore, and starts moving to her right. And the deer are still behind her. They're so close she could reach out and touch them. So she starts jumping up and down, waving her arms, saying, "Get out of here, get out of here." And the deer take the hint, jump the guardrail, and run off down the hill. Then Shelley jumps in her car and gets out of there. She knew this thing was trying to circle around her, and she was not going to wait around for that. Does she think she scared it? No. But she does think she confused it a little bit for a couple of minutes there, which was just enough time for her to get away. And Shelley didn't tell her husband everything about what happened up there, because she knew he would think she was nuts. And to be honest, she herself thought she was a little nuts until she saw a picture of a Dogman. And now she knows there are things out there that can't be explained. She's seen one. And if your binge-a-thon is just getting started, here is round 2. And we will see you again on the In-Between.